Welcome to Constant TV, where legitimacy and consistency rule.
The door of no return is not a literal door, but a powerful symbol, a haunting reminder of a dark past. It represents the final exit point for millions of Africans who were forcibly taken from their homeland and thrust into the horrors of slavery. These doorways, often located within imposing slave forts on the African coast, represented a terrifying transition from freedom to bondage. They marked the passage from a life of freedom in Africa to a life of forced labor and unimaginable hardship in the Americas. The name itself evokes the immense loss, the severing of ties, and the slim chance of ever returning home, a home that would forever remain a distant memory. For many, it was the last sight of their homeland, a final heart-wrenching glimpse of the land they would never see again. The door of no return stands as a poignant reminder of a brutal chapter in human history, a chapter filled with pain, suffering, and resilience. It is a physical manifestation of the transatlantic slave trade, a period marked by immense suffering, exploitation, and the dehumanization of millions. Today, these sites serve as powerful memorials, places where we can reflect on the past and honor the memory of those who suffered. They compel us to remember the victims, to learn from the past, and to ensure that such atrocities are never repeated. These memorials stand as a testament to human resilience and the enduring spirit of those who were forced to pass through the door of no return. The transatlantic slave trade spanned over 4 centuries, from the 16th to the 19th. This period saw the forced migration of millions of African people, uprooted from their homeland and subjected to unimaginable suffering. It involved the forced transportation of millions of African people across the Atlantic Ocean. These individuals were torn from their families and communities, shackled and herded onto ships bound for the Americas. European powers, driven by greed and a thirst for economic dominance, orchestrated this horrific trade. They saw the exploitation of African labor as a means to fuel their growing economies and expand their colonial empires. African men, women, and children were brutally captured, sold into slavery, and shipped in appalling conditions to the Americas. Families were torn apart and entire communities were devastated by the loss of their members. The journey across the Atlantic, known as the Middle Passage, was a horrific ordeal. Enslaved Africans were packed tightly into the holds of ships with little room to move or breathe. Cramped and unsanitary conditions on slave ships led to disease, starvation, and death. Many did not survive the journey, their bodies thrown overboard into the ocean. Those who survived the journey faced a life of forced labor on plantations, enduring inhumane treatment and the loss of their freedom and culture. They were subjected to grueling work, often from sunrise to sunset, under the watchful eyes of overseers. The transatlantic slave trade left an indelible mark on the world, shaping societies and leaving lasting scars on both sides of the Atlantic. The legacy of this dark chapter continues to influence the social, economic, and cultural landscapes of nations to this day, reminding us of the resilience of the human spirit and the importance of remembering our history. Along the western coast of Africa, massive forts and castles became grim symbols of the trade. Built by European powers, these structures served as holding pens for captured Africans. Inside their walls, men, women, and children were imprisoned in cramped and unsanitary conditions, awaiting their fate. These coastal forts were strategic outposts for European traders. These forts facilitated the trade, providing a base for negotiations, storage of goods, and the processing of human beings into commodities. The forts stand today as stark reminders of the trade's brutality, their very stones bearing witness to the suffering they contained. They are physical manifestations of the greed and cruelty that fueled this dark chapter in human history. Off the coast of Senegal lies Gorée Island, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Gorée Island stands as a powerful symbol of the transatlantic slave trade. This small island served as a major slave trading center for over 3 centuries. The House of Slaves, a vivid reminder of the horrors endured, is a key feature. Its door of no return, opening onto the Atlantic, represents the final goodbye for countless Africans. Walking through the House of Slaves, one can almost hear the echoes of sorrow and despair. The cramped holding cells, the chains, the door of no return, all speak volumes about the human cost of this trade. Section 5. Other sites of anguish: Elmina, Cape Coast and Ouida. These locations are etched into the history of the transatlantic slave trade, each bearing witness to the horrors endured by countless individuals. Gorée Island is just one of many sites that mark this dark chapter. Its infamous door of no return symbolizes the final departure point for many enslaved Africans. Along the coast of Ghana, Elmina Castle and Cape Coast Castle stand as chilling reminders. These fortresses were central to the operations of the slave trade, where human lives were commodified and sold. These imposing structures once held thousands captive, awaiting transport across the Atlantic. The dungeons and holding cells were overcrowded and inhumane, reflecting the brutal conditions endured by the captives. In Benin, the town of Ouida played a significant role in the slave trade. It was a major hub where captives were gathered and sold to European traders. Ouida's Route des Esclaves, or slave route, marks the path taken by captives to the coast. This route is lined with historical markers that tell the stories of those who walked this path in chains. The sacred forest of Ouida, once a place of solace for those awaiting their fate, now stands as a memorial. It serves as a poignant reminder of the resilience and strength of those who suffered. These sites, each with its own unique story, contribute to a broader understanding of the slave trade's vast reach and devastating impact. They are crucial for educating future generations about this dark chapter in human history and ensuring that such atrocities are never repeated. Section 6. Scars across generations: the diaspora's legacy of pain. The legacy of the transatlantic slave trade continues to resonate deeply. The forced displacement of millions of Africans had a profound impact on societies across the globe. It led to the African diaspora, the dispersion of African people and their cultures across the Americas and beyond. This diaspora, born out of tragedy, also led to the resilience and adaptation of African culture in new environments. Music, dance, language, and traditions were preserved and transformed, creating vibrant new cultural expressions. However, the psychological and emotional scars of slavery continue to impact generations. The legacy of racism and inequality rooted in this period of exploitation remains a challenge today. Section 7. Remembering the past: education and the preservation of memory. Preserving sites like Gorée Island, Elmina Castle and Ouida is crucial. These locations serve as powerful educational tools. They offer tangible connections to the past, helping us understand the realities of the slave trade. By learning about this dark chapter, we can better combat racism and discrimination in the present. These sites are not merely relics of the past, they are places of active remembrance and reflection. They challenge us to learn from history's mistakes and to work towards a more just and equitable future. By preserving these sites, we honor the memory of those who suffered and lost their lives. Section 8. From darkness to light: resilience and the power of remembrance. The door of no return is a symbol of immense suffering, but it also represents resilience. It speaks to the strength and spirit of the African people who endured unimaginable hardships. It is a testament to their ability to survive, adapt, and rebuild. Visiting these sites can be a deeply emotional experience. However, it is also an important step in understanding the past. By confronting the horrors of slavery, we can work towards healing and reconciliation. These sites remind us that we must never forget the past, but rather use its lessons to build a better future. Section 9. The door reopened: reconnecting with lost heritage. For many people of African descent, visiting these sites is a pilgrimage. It is a journey of reconnection with their lost heritage. It is an opportunity to pay homage to their ancestors and to better understand their own identities. The emotional weight of walking through the door of no return is immense. It is a symbolic step back in time, a way of connecting with the experiences of their ancestors. These sites offer a space for healing, reflection, and a deeper understanding of the African diaspora's complex history. They represent a return to the source, a reclaiming of lost heritage. Section 10. A call to action: fighting modern slavery and discrimination. The door of no return serves as a stark reminder that the fight for freedom and equality is far from over. Tragically, slavery still exists in various forms around the world. Human trafficking, forced labor, and exploitation continue to plague our planet. The lessons learned from the transatlantic slave trade must inform our present-day actions. We must remain vigilant in identifying and combating these injustices. By remembering the horrors of the past, we can work towards a future where all people are free. Let the door of no return be not just a reminder of suffering, but also a call to action for a more just and equitable world.